30 minutes today rather than 60. We're, of course, disappointed, but we certainly understand the fullness of your schedule. So in order to take full advantage of your time with us, what we would like to do is make a couple of changes to our program, and I'll speak about those later. And we have our 3 BC party candidates who ran in this riding during a recent provincial election. Kim Darwin, do you want to give a hi, Kim? BC Green candidate for Powell River Sunshine Coast. Gillian Anderson, BC Green candidate for Courtenay-Comox. Alexandra Morton, BC Green candidate for the North Island. These are 4 remarkable women who courageously stepped forward in order to help create better communities and a better world. We really thank you. So before we get into the meat of our time, just a little techie piece, and that is recommending that you put your Zoom screen on speaker view in order to track the speakers. You can go up to, on most screens, the view icon, choosing speaker view. And secondly, we ask and expect that you will be respectful, and if not, know that you will be removed from this call without warning. I think you will agree there has been a notable uptick in the number of women in politics these days. And Annamie, when I witnessed you and Sonia First-to-Know, the newly elected leader of the BC Greens, collaborating on a public Zoom meeting during the provincial election, something in me clicked. It felt like a special moment with you, because in a very relaxed and real way, it felt like you and Sonia just invited all of us on that call into your living rooms. And in those moments, it felt as though the humanity was being brought back into politics. It was a visionary and pragmatic, and it felt accessible in a truly inclusive way, this conversation with the 2 of you. And I found myself wanting to participate. So here we are now for the next 50 minutes, taking advantage of this current wealth of the feminine in politics. We'll have the opportunity to get to know the 4 of you through your introductions. And starting with you, Annamie, who we would like to give 5 minutes due to the shortened time that you have with us. We were hoping for the 30 minutes with you, and 60 minutes. And now that we know it's 30, we want to give you a little extra time in your introduction. So starting with you at 5 minutes, Annamie, and then in alphabetical order by last name with Gillian, and then Kim, and then Alexandra, who will each have 2 to 3 minutes for your intros. And following the introductions, I'll have a couple of prepared questions, and then we will entertain questions from our audience through the chat feature. So, audience, this is a note to you. Let this be your invitation to start thinking of your questions and writing them into the chat. Will Hatch, Will, do you want to give a hi? Will is my comrade in arms here, and Will is a member of our NIPR executive. He's also a founding member of the Comox Youth Climate Council, and Will be monitoring the chat for your questions, and we'll start the Q&A off with a couple of questions from our local Youth Climate Council. So now, honored guests, the floor is yours to tell us about what drew you into politics at this time, why you chose the Green Party, what, if anything, surprised you during your campaign, and what you feel may have contributed to your success. Annamie, again, we'll start with you. And please take 5 minutes and speak to one or more of these questions, and I'll repeat them in a moment. But please also include whatever feels most relevant to you at this time and for this group of people. So the questions again are, what brought you into politics and why the Green Party? What surprised you in your campaign? And what do you feel contributed to your success, among Annamie, particularly other relevant topics? So Annamie, the floor is yours for the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. And I'm coming to you from the traditional territories of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Huron-Wendat. And for those of you who heard my acceptance speech in October, you know how much that means to me every time I say that. And it's really wonderful to be back amongst friends. I recognize faces now and names. I'm sorry, I don't have more time. This is if you want to know what my life looks like these days. I was being interviewed by Chris Hall on Thursday afternoon, late Thursday afternoon, a pre-tape for the CBC radio show, The House. And he gave me a heads up or an advance notice that the Liberals were planning to, likely on Monday, release their proposed climate legislation. And so that immediately kicked us all basically into high gear, because we want to put out our own proposals. We want to tell them what we expect to hear. We decided that I had to go to Ottawa to do a press conference. I'm in Toronto on Monday morning at I think 10 a.m. And so I'm leaving to Ottawa tomorrow. And in the meantime, today we were working on press releases and key messages and so forth. So, and after I finish that, I'll be going back to that. So that is what it looks like to be in politics. That's what it's like. And I turn to my husband and my kids sometimes and say, you know, we're living the dream. You know, this is what you wanted, right? This is what you wanted to do on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. But I will say that it's worth it in the sense that if we do this well, then we certainly will have injected ideas into Parliament, into the political discourse at a time when there's attention being paid. And so if we do the job well, then as of Tuesday, Wednesday, we should have moved the needle forward in a positive way on climate action. People should know what ideas the Green Party of Canada has on climate action. And, you know, given that we really still are the only party that's proposing real targets that correspond to the science, that have a credible, well thought out plan, and that just really are committed to true climate action, it's really important. And so it reminds me of the reasons that I decided to do this. And so, I mean, why I decided to, in addition to that, why I decided to run the very first time in 2019 for the Green Party in Toronto Centre, and then run for the leadership, and then run in the by-election in Toronto Centre. So I've essentially in one way or another been running for the Green Party nonstop since June of last year. I'm very committed to this party. I love this party. I really believe in collective action. And in terms of women, Carol, that I can trace that back to my family and to my mother and to my grandmother, who came from a very small community. And if there's one lesson I left my childhood with, it's that if we want to create positive change, then it's going to happen collectively. And so for me, that's something that I believe in very, very much. And it's the thing that drew me to politics at this moment, because we are facing some unprecedented, extraordinary challenges that we are only going to get through together. We are going to, you know, get through them together, or we are all going to fail and fall together. And so I wanted to be part of a community, which is the Green Party, excuse me, that really understood that and was really committed to that. And I really wanted to do my part. And a lot of that, of course, emanates from the things that, that come with being a woman, at least in my case. I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I care about my community. I feel a sense of responsibility to it. And so for me, with my background, my skills, my experience, I felt that this was really an important moment for me to try to contribute that to a collective action. And I'll maybe just give one more reflection on that and just say that, you know, the other thing that I'll be talking a lot about in the days to come is COVID-19 and our response. And some of you may have heard me calling for an intergovernmental COVID task force that brings together all of the levels of government to create a coordinated national strategy. And it occurred to me this morning, and I was telling my partner that, you know, this is why we need different perspectives in politics. This is why we need a variety of lived experiences, because my experience of COVID is that I have not been in the same room with my mother for about 2 months now, because she's 84 and she's in a very high risk category for catching COVID. My father died during the pandemic in a long-term care home under very negligent conditions and an avoidable death. My brother lost his job out in Alberta because everyone was laid off because of COVID. My sister, who's in the arts, is in theater. Every single project that she had for this year has been canceled. And so these are the experiences that, and I'm also the mother of a son who took this year off of school because, you know, he didn't work all summer and his university is essentially being shut down because of COVID. So those are the kind of experiences that I bring to politics. And when I speak about the need for coordinated action, it's because I understand what's at stake and what's on the line. And so that is really reinforced to me today why it's important to have women like me in politics. And Carol, I will say that while it's very encouraging to see lots of women running, we really need to keep in mind that had I not won, we would have had almost certainly, I should say, there were a few women that ran, but had a woman not run and won for the Greens in our leadership race, we would have had 5 people who identify as men leading all of our federal parties. And at the moment, all of our provinces and territories, save one, are led by men. And so, you know, we can never take for granted that the advances that we make are permanent, because there was a moment when we had lots of women leading at the federal and provincial level, not that long ago, and they're all gone. And so this is something that if we want to see made permanent, we need to identify, and some of them are on this call, strong women who have taken this leap. We need to support them in very tangible ways, making the calls, raising money for them, donating to their campaigns, helping them find good staff to support them in their campaigns. And then when they finally, you know, get their name on the ballot, we need to make sure that we vote for them. Because it's a simple formula, but it's how we get women elected. And we need more. We need many, many more than we have now. We need a critical mass, because we know that it changes the way that politics is done when you have a critical mass of women. And I say this as someone who dedicated many years to helping get women elected and understanding the what, where, and why of how women run, why they run, and how they get elected. And maybe my last reflection, because I don't want to take up too much time, and I could talk about this a lot, is just to say to all of you, well, first to the women who ran, thank you. Because, you know, we're part of this club of people who knows how hard it is. Politics is not a very welcoming place. It's quite brutal. The language is very aggressive, quite toxic. You sacrifice a lot, really sacrifice a lot in order to run, and then when you serve. And so everyone needs to try to do their part to change that culture. There's no reason that a person who chooses to put themselves forward for public service should be immediately dehumanized in the way that happens in politics. And so if we want the very best people to run, if we want to have access to the kindest people and the people with the most experience, and we want to have all of that accessible to us when we're developing public policy, we really have got to make sure that we're not turning them off before they even put their names forward because of the culture of politics. And I will say that that's something that applies within our party, but just in general. And so those are my reflections. And thank you so much for being here. Megan and Carol and those of you who have worked on this event, I promise that I will make up the other half hour to you. I promise. This is not a one-off. I promise. So please invite me again for another, reflection or discussion or whatever, and I promise I will come.
Thank you so much, Annamie, that you brought up so many important points. And clearly, we need more Greens in politics, whether they're male or female. And today, especially, we're talking about women. I so appreciate the qualities that you're speaking of women bringing into politics. And we need to change our entire world for a greater balance in terms of the feminine. And I just thank you so much for your contribution. I know it takes an enormous amount. So thanks for that. We will get back to you. And Gillian, if you would step forward, please, for 2 to 3 minutes, sharing with us why you went into politics, why the Greens, and what were some of the things that you experienced, and where to from here?
Hi, yeah, I am here too on the traditional territory of the Comox First Nations. I originally, what my first desperate need was to get rid of Christy Clark, of course, some years ago. Horrible, really negative leadership for BC. And I did work very hard on Ronna Ray Leonard's campaign here for the NDP. And of course, I believe that they campaigned with very positive environmental platform to get the environmental votes. And then of course, once they got into power, they methodically ignored or broke all of those environmental commitments. So that is why I gave up 45 years of allegiance to the NDP and became a Green member. And obviously I can never go back. I think once you start voting Green, you can never go back. One thing that did surprise me was looking at the results in my riding. And I mean, obviously this is just my interpretation, but almost 4,000 votes went from the Conservatives and Liberal, people who had previously voted Conservative and Liberal, over to the NDP. And again, it's just my interpretation, but that seems to me to reflect on the NDP's, at least provincially here, on their environmental record, that thousands of Conservative and Liberal voters would be quite comfortable with that. And I think that really plays into the fact that we really need to keep pushing the PR, proportional representation mandate, because clearly there's plenty of room for other voices, and we really need to have, for equitable government, we really need to have that significant percentage. In a fair number of ridings, it was 20% around there. That's a significant input of votes, and that really needs to have some form of representation in the legislature. So I think that's the critical next step. One thing that did surprise me, and just cut me off if I talk longer than 3 minutes, is that, and of course, I feel it was deliberately designed by the NDP, giving Sonia such a short window, but so many people were saying to me up until the very last moment that they didn't know the Green policies, and they still didn't know who to vote for. And of course, at that point in time, and I'm not sure what the other candidates' experience was, it was too late. But again, given the short campaign notice, I'm sure that was designed deliberately. So hopefully next campaign, with more run-up time, it should be a much more equitable campaign as far as the ability and the opportunity to put information out there. And of course, especially if we start working now on that platform and on that presence in the community.
Gillian, thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. And we'll look forward to more from you in a few moments. I'd like to move on to Kim Darwin from Powell River Sunshine Coast.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this event on and for inviting me to participate. So I'm speaking to you from the Shishalt Nation, but also in our riding is the Squamish Nation, the Clahaman Nation, and the Clahoose Nation. And why the BC Green Party? I don't just have one reason why I ran for the BC Green Party, but when my children grew up and left home, instead of being the hot lunch mom and all of that kind of thing, I ended up becoming the president of my local Chamber of Commerce. And through the Chamber of Commerce, we got to hear all of the politicians speak. They come to the various events. And it was after hearing our former leaders speak that I joined the BC Green Party, and that was in 2014. I was elected as the Provincial Council Secretary, and I held that role until last year when I was elected as the Vice Chair. I also ran in 2017 as the candidate in the Powell River Sunshine Coast riding, and ran again this year in the snap pandemic election, which was quite a wild ride, I tell you. But the BC Green Party is the only party that I trust to take the authentic climate action that we need. Everybody on the call, I'm sure, knows that we really have only a few short years left before it could be too late. And we have all of the answers that we need. We have everything that we need to transition our climate action. And really what we don't have is that political will. And the Greens, federally, provincially, we're the only ones that have it. What surprised me about this election, there's just a few things. So I ended up getting, with my team's help and teamwork, I'll talk about that momentarily, but I ended up getting 8,140 people voted for me, and that ended up being 32.5% of the vote. In a proportional system, I would be heading to Victoria right now to represent all of British Columbia. So we can't stop talking about that proportional voting system, even though the referendum failed. And we all know that it was likely designed to fail. Also, what surprised me just specifically about this election was the fundraising. People were so generous with their funds that I didn't have to, like in 2017, I spent so much time trying to fundraise in order to run a campaign. This campaign was different, and I don't expect that it'll always be this way, but it just shows the amount of support that people have for the BC Green Party. People are starting to have the aha moments. The number of former NDP, lifelong NDPers that finally, they realize that they have to make a decision to vote for what they want instead of doing the fear tactics as we've all heard. Another just real surprising thing, and this is a little tip for, if we do end up having a federal election, this is something to note. We didn't do an awful lot of door knocking, but we thought that people would be opposed to door knocking during a pandemic. Of course, we had safety protocols, and you know what? There wasn't a single person that was adverse to us knocking on their doors. So just a little, as we're preparing for possibly a federal election, let's get our door knockers ready. And what contributed to the success that we had here? Teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. So after the 2017 election, so I started in 2017, no team, no money, not even having a clue how to run a campaign. And we ended up gathering up a team that we were actually almost disappointed when the election ended because we enjoyed working together so well. So what did we do? We formed a riding association. And I attribute that organization of the riding association and everybody that continued to stick together. We did fundraising over the last 3.5 years. We had some money in the kitty. So when the snap election happened, it is only because of the fact that we had such a great team We had trained volunteers doing phone calling. We had trained people who were able to do door knocking. We had a little bit of money in the kitty. Honestly, that is what gave us a leg up. It was exponential. So teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. So I recommend everybody join your EDA, join your RA.
Thank you so much, Kim. I love your passion. And I am aware, Annamie, of your time. And I want to give Alexandra Morton her opportunity to speak, but I want to check in with you, Annamie, in terms of your time. Do you have another 5 or 10 with us?
Yeah, I know it's. I'll stay for 10 more because I get more out of this than you do, believe me. So yeah, I'm gonna.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. I'm going to put it right over now to Alexandra, and then we'll get back with a question from our Comox Youth Climate Council for you, Annamie. So Alex, please take it away for a couple of moments.
Yes, I'll just be really quick and hopefully my signal holds up. I feel like a little bit of an imposter here because I'm a biologist who spent 30 years trying to save the salmon of this coast, which, you know, salmon keep things running around here. They're the bloodstream, they move the nutrients. A lot of my work is trying to get people to understand they're not just something on your plate, but they're something we need. And nothing I've done has worked. So Elizabeth May actually phoned me at a rather desperate moment. And I thought, I will try this. And it was a remarkable, one of the most interesting things to me was how people open up to you as a candidate. It's almost like, you know, I imagine doctors get very intimate conversations with people. It was the same with me. So I took advantage of that and called teachers and nurses and loggers and fish farmers and everyone I could think of, mayors of tiny, tiny remote communities. And I was just so struck by the fact that everybody does actually know what needs to happen. And so I don't understand why government just doesn't do what people need to thrive, because really all we want to do is commit economic activity and be, you know, happy, good citizens. So it was a fascinating process. I also got to meet some extraordinary women who I hope we get to be friends with I get to be friends with forever. It was a dizzying experience being a snap election in a pandemic. And I made a point of really modeling what Dr. Bonnie Henry wants from our behavior. So I didn't do any door knocking, but it was a remarkable experience. And this party, you know, you get what's going on. We have the answers. And I love the idea that Sonia brought up that there needs to be ministers from different parties. I think that is absolutely vital so that government doesn't become co-opted by single interests and go off the rails. So I'm going to stop there because hear more from Annamie Paul, and thank you all.
Alexandra, thank you so much. Your voice is such an important voice with us and for us. So thank you very much. I want to hand the mic over to Will now so that he can ask a question from the Comox Youth Climate Council. And the youth are such a critical issue or part of our voting population. So over to you, Will. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks, Annamie, Kim, Gillian, and Alexandra. So my name is Will. I am a founding member of the Comox Youth Climate Council. A couple of us are also here today, and they have some chat questions. I live, work, and play on the traditional territory of the Comox First Nations, and I'm very lucky to actually have a midden on my property in the backwoods. Anyway, this is the question on behalf of Comox Youth Climate Council. There is no doubt that my generation, the generation of environmentalists, of protests, Donald Trump, coronavirus, of civil rights movements, and the rise and fall of so much unrest, is sometimes hopeful for the future and sometimes sickened. Sickened at all the uncertainty, and sickened at the certainty that this is the most pivotal time in human history. Now, the message we get often is, just keep doing what you're doing. But CYCC believes there's a simple way to make all this seem so much easier. Just go out there and cast your vote. So with so much at stake, how do you believe both you and the members of CYCC can get more young voters out to vote? Again, and any of you feel free to answer first. Go ahead, Kim.
Thank you. Annamie, would you give the first response, and please let us know when you need to depart, and we will.
I'm going to go at, I'll go at 6:40, so I'll be here until then. It's a great question, and actually it gives me an opportunity to talk about the by-election that I ran in Toronto Centre, because I bring a lot of good news from that by-election. For me, I decided to run in that by-election before I won the leadership of the party, because it's really a microcosm of all of the challenges we face across Canada. A third of the people live under the poverty line, 40% of the children do. It's the center of the urban Indigenous population in Ontario. It's the center of the opioid crisis in our country. More than half of the people were born outside of Canada. It has 3 universities as well, so there are a lot of young people who live in the riding as well, and so and it's been neglected. It's also one of the least affordable ridings in the entire country. And so I ran there, even though I ran there in 2019 and we received 7%, because I was born in that riding and I wasn't going to abandon them. In 3 weeks, and this comes back to what Kim said, in 3 weeks, because, and really only because clearly we were so inspirational to the people in that riding, we went from 7% to 33%. And, the Liberals, we finished second. We were predicted the day before the election, we were predicted to get 6.7%. That was the prediction by the pollsters. And the Liberals, who had a gap of 30% between them and the NDP in the last election, we finished within 9% of them. And this is the safest Liberal seat in the entire country. And it was because of coming back to your question, Will, it was because of what you said, which is that, and what Kim said also, which is that people are ready for something different. All of the things that you mentioned, all of these seismic changes, all of this social transformation that we're experiencing because of the pandemic, because of the climate crisis, because of the changing nature of work, automation, artificial intelligence, all of these things have really made people question the sanity of the path that we are on. And, it convinced a lot of people that if they want a different outcome, they're going to need to make a different choice. And so our votes came from every single political party, about 15%. The Liberals lost 15% of their vote that went to us. 5% from the, 5%, how do I put this in? I don't want to dazzle people with too many numbers. Let's just say the Liberals dropped 15% of their vote. That went to us. Not 15%, they went from about 57% to 44%. All of that went to the Greens. The NDP dropped from 23% to 17%. All of that went to us as well. And the Conservatives went from about 13% to 6%, and that went to us as well. So this was a very unusual coalition of people saying that we want something different. And this should make us feel confident. It should make us feel competitive everywhere. It should be exciting to you, Will, and to the members of your youth group, because as you said, if people feel empowered by their vote and like it might make a difference, then they exercise it. And if young people feel like they can be leaders as well, and they were in our campaign across all of it, then they participate. And so I believe that those are some of the keys. I mean, we have been steadily increasing the youth vote in that riding for those reasons, and that youth vote has been coming to us. But I think it's all about believing that something better is possible, and also feeling like you're part of it. And you know, the Green Party, at least the Green Party that I want to lead, is one that has a great deal of respect for youth leadership. And I think that that is going to attract more youth to us in the days and weeks and months to come. That's something I'm very, very committed to. So yeah, I wanted to sneak in some good news there, but I can tell you that we shouldn't feel like there's any riding that that we can't be competitive in, because this is a riding the Liberals have held uninterruptedly since 1990, since 1993 or 1997, 1993, and they've held it almost uninterruptedly for the past 58 years. So this is, you know, this is very, very encouraging news for us. And it's not my charisma, it's their belief in our party and in the positivity of our plan for the future of this country.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I think I buried the lead a little bit about that, because we were talking about women, but I think it's important for all of us to know as we're heading potentially into maybe even a spring election. This is the most recent, let's say, test of the Green Party we've had, and in, you know, as I said, in just the heart of Liberal country. For those of you who don't know Ontario or Toronto very well, we have 25 seats, and the Liberals have won all of those 25 seats for the past several election cycles, every single one. So it actually doesn't matter. You could run a hanger and it would, I mean, I say that in all honesty, you could, I mean, it does not matter when you have such a hegemony, it really doesn't matter who the individual candidate is. It's really the brand that people have bought into. And so to be able to go in 3 weeks and completely smash that brand, and in a very diverse neighborhood as well. We won the most affluent parts of the riding, we won those. The university pockets of the riding, we won those. We won low income neighborhoods as well. And as I said, about 60% of the people in that riding are racialized. And interestingly enough, I will say this, the racialized community is the one that we have the most, we still have the most work to do. People think that because I'm, you know, me, that immediately everyone that looks like me is going to vote for me, but it's not the case. There's just a lot of automaticity to the Liberal vote. But that's the good news that I want to give you all, because if we can do it there, then I know that in the next federal election in BC, we are definitely going to make some breakthroughs. And I guess since I have to go and I hogged a lot of time, I will say, as I always do at the end of these meetings, I'm on the lookout for talent. Every single one of you needs to be the eyes and ears and scout for the candidates that we are going to run out in your neck of the woods in the next federal election. We want extraordinary people, and you are the ones who know who they are. These don't have to be people with political experience. They just have to be people that have been leaders in their community and that, you know, have something extraordinary to contribute. And so you can contact me directly with those names, and you should talk to those people. You are the scouts. You are the ones, you're the recruiters. You're the ones that need to do that work. And so please do it. And please help us have the, you know, the most extraordinary slate of BC candidates ever in 2021.
Well, thank you so much, Annamie. That was a great answer. I will take that back to my team.
Thank you, Will, and thank you, Annamie, so much for that cheerleading. We're going to let you go, but we're going to hold you to completing your last 20 minutes with us to help us keep brand smashing across the nation. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you soon. Bye. So, Will, would you mind repeating that question so that we can have just a quick 30-second reply from Gillian and from Alexandra and from Kim on that same question. So just for those of you speaking, just a 30-second reply on that question, and then we'll move on to some more. Thank you, Will. If you want to just repeat
I'll keep it a little shorter this time. So basically, with so much at stake, how do you believe both you and the members of CYCC can get more young voters out to vote?
I'll start off. Lowering the voting age to 16 would be an awesome start to getting younger demographic to vote, as well as the BC Green Party formed a youth advisory council, which allows it's a position where I actually nominated one of our local gals here on the Sunshine Coast to be part of the youth advisory council. They can write policy that then our MLAs can actually put forward as a private members bill. So it's empowering our youth. We also, membership is free for 16 to 25-year-olds with the BC Green Party. And I hope I don't have to get a TikTok account in order to engage with the youth, because I tried that and it drove me nuts. So unless I get a youth to help me with that, it's not really the way that I want to engage with you.
Great. Thank you, Kim, very much. Alex, would you chime in just for 30 seconds on this question?
Yes. So I engage in a lot of activism with youth who are extraordinary. And I think that those of us that are older, that are running, we really need you to stand beside us so that the youth can see themselves in us. I also think that people should be voting in schools for everything. People should get used to voting, make it normal. I also think lowering the voting age is a fabulous idea because it's obviously your future that is at stake here. And so I think that we need to stand together side by side so that there doesn't appear to be an age division between us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alex and Gillian. Gillian, can you bring
My microphone's not.
I gotcha.
Oh, you can hear me now? Oh, great. Good.
I
That's
hear
great.
you.
Okay. Well, one thing, it's fine. Thanks, Helen, my tech advisor. One thing I would suggest to you, Will, wherever you are again, there you are, is when you have events, try to get the press to cover them, because if you've ever priced out the cost of an ad in a newspaper, it can be hundreds of dollars for a very small area. And so if you get a picture and a paragraph and coverage, you're getting a lot of free publicity. I would also suggest that you go to make presentations to all municipal councils and ask them what they're actually doing about climate change, or whether they will endorse a resolution that you've got. Again, you're probably going to get press coverage about that. And also, I know the unions, which I believe supported the NDP very heavily, gathering from the comments that we heard on street corners and from people who contacted us and whatnot. You could see about putting a delegation toward them and asking them where they stand on climate change, LNG, fracking, Site C, whatever is your particular concern, and asking them for concrete actions and support for your resolutions. And again, it gets your voice out there and it gets you a lot of publicity. You can always write up a press release and send it to the newspaper with your own submitted picture, a picture of you standing in front of the council or whatever you're doing. And everything you get in the newspaper is free publicity for you.
That's really great, Gillian. Thank you so much. And what I'd like to do now is just give, ask the three of you a prepared question. And then I'm wondering how many of you have put your questions in the chat. And if you haven't done that yet, to please take a moment and do that so that we can take some questions from you from the floor, maybe even have it more of a conversation between our three guests. And in the meantime, starting with Alexandra, here is the question. What do you think of the idea of creating a regional organization for the three political ridings contained within NIPR. So what do you think of the idea of creating a regional organization for the 3 provincial ridings contained within NIPR? So we're talking about Powell River Sunshine Coast, North Island, and Courtenay-Comox riding. So Alex, starting with you, and we're making these fairly short so that we can get more questions in.
Yeah, this is a question about politics, and so I'm just going to pass it on to the others, because I'm not sure what is the right thing to do along those lines. I mean, it sounds like a good idea to me, but I really don't know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about things like that.
Thanks, Alexandra. Appreciate your candor and honesty. So let's go to Kim. You may have given this some thought because it's probably played a part in much of what you've been doing over the years. So what do you think of the idea of creating a regional organization for the 3 provincial ridings contained within North Island, Powell River?
So I think if we have riding associations and EDAs already formed, I don't see any reason why they couldn't, meet a few times a year to collaborate. But I think it's really fundamental that we have those riding associations and EDAs operating within our own regions and not really detracting from that very much. So I see that it could be an expansion on those organizations, but to have an entirely separate organization with different people on it, I don't think that that would be very fruitful, to be quite honest with you. But I see it, I can't stress enough, having the EDAs and the riding associations are absolutely fundamental to our green future success.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And Gillian.
Well, again, being a neophyte and a newcomer, I'm sure there's a great many of you out there who have far more of an informed opinion on this. It sounds like being connected, even if it's in a loose way, would only benefit. But again, I'm sure that you've probably got a much vaster experience about the matter. So I'm going to defer to your wisdom on that. And I would like to say, if I just get a chance, I would like to thank again all of the people on the campaign team who supported me, who really go unsung. But we had a fabulous team. I do want to thank them while I've got the chance.
Thank you, Gillian. Thanks so much.
Can I just go back to answer one more thing that Will's question had? Will, we need your youth on our riding associations and our EDAs. We want your voices. We absolutely want your voices. So sorry, I just wanted to add that one other piece in.
Kim, thank you for adding that. Will, go ahead.
I was just saying thanks.
Yes, Kim, there was somebody here in the chat that says, we need to know what the youth need and want. And they indicated what we need to do is a lot of listening. And I think that's so very true. And so again, the invitation for those of you in the youth category to join us on our EDAs and so on is just such a warm and real invitation to all of you. So Will, while I've got you, are there questions that you have from the chat yet?
There are some questions, yes. There are a few. So I will start with Marie's question about food waste. I'll just read it out from the chat.
Great.
Okay, so reducing food waste is one of the highest ranking climate solutions identified by Project Drawdown, which is the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. This fact has largely been ignored by federal and provincial policies. How do you see the place of food waste reduction policy in the Green Party platform?
Excellent question, Will. Thank you for that. And what I'd like to do with our guests is open it up to you as a conversation. So just feel free to jump in, and we'll give it a minute on this from the group of you. So Who feels like starting us off?
This is such a golden opportunity, and I connect the food waste and well, first of all, we shouldn't be wasting as much, but there is a certain amount of food waste that we have to do something with. And I connect this with our food security, where we can actually use the food waste to create healthy soil as well. So this is a huge opportunity to increase our food security and decrease our food waste. So I actually see this as part of our ability to have an economic transition, is talking about what we do with our food waste and increasing our ability to farm healthy soil in healthy soil. So I could talk about this quite a bit because it's one of my pet passions, but I'll let some of the others speak as well. And Alexandra, with a lot of what you do, you probably have a lot to say about this as well.
Well, yes, I mean, we have to start thinking in whole systems, and nothing is really thrown out. It always does recycle, but how that wants to work into the green policy and how we communicate that as a party, I'm less sure about. But one thing I really heard so much about was everybody wanted community gardens in the North Island riding. And I'm actually going back to those people now and saying, hey, you know what? You don't need to wait for me. I didn't get elected. You don't have to wait for government. Just do it. Just, step up and do it. And that is my advice to people, is just do it. And hopefully you can grow it. But yes, composting and not wasting food and growing it is going to be incredibly important, probably in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I would just add that anecdotally, I hear that the grocery stores are still, I knew someone who worked at, I believe it was one of the big grocery stores, and at the end of the night, all of the rotisserie chickens that didn't get sold went out in the garbage. I know my daughter, when she was at UVic, she had friends who basically lived off dumpster diving, which to me seems, if that much food at the final stage is going into the garbage, there's something fundamentally wrong with the way that we're managing food and producing it. So that's especially when so many people are going hungry. So I think that's something we can tackle as well on an immediate community level, somehow setting up networks and something so that this food, instead of going, I guess it's more expedient for the grocery chains, but there must be some better way of handling food that they don't want anymore.
Thanks, Gillian. Yes, it's a huge issue, isn't it? And thank you for the individual who asked that question through Will.
Can I just add one other piece? I attended a Zoom conference talking about also packaging and how packaging can reduce food waste. And that's a bit of a conundrum, because some of the packaging that reduces the spoilage of the food is actually also bad for our environment. So there's this balance, and there are people that are studying best practices. So we need to keep our eye on that as well. What materials will reduce what packaging will reduce that food waste as well, without, again, destroying our planet with lots more garbage. So lots to think about, lots of problems to solve, right?
So many issues we have. Don't get us started on that packaging issue. Thank you all for that. And I'm noticing our time is rapidly dwindling, and I wanted to put out one more question for the three of you, again, just as a conversation. And the question is, so that we can leave on a positive note, what did you learn, each of you, from the recent campaign that might give us a positive vision for change? And I'll invite you to jump in when you feel.
I could go first with that one. I've been really touched during the campaign, but also after the campaign, by young people, predominantly young people in their, say, early 20s, who have kind of sidled up to me in a store or in a restaurant and said, I voted for you. And it seems a good omen for the future when young people are thinking of voting green. So I found that very encouraging. I think young people are the future voters for the Greens. Not just young.
I was so struck by how much people know about what they need. Like when I called the teachers, I had to hold the phone away, and because I'd uncorked a great deal of grief and anger. But as soon as he settled down, it was just like, I need this, 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 and this. It was same with the street nurses and the small mayors, the regional directors. And COVID in a weird way has gotten us all thinking, like, right away in March, nobody could buy seeds because everybody realized it was time to buy food. So I think that a party that taps into that ability for people to think for themselves, to be smart about what we're doing next. Yeah, people are starving for that. And the Green Party is really, I had the same experience as you did with people coming up to me, I voted for you. I never did that before. My dad voted for you and he's never done that before. Mm-hmm. Loggers posed with me with my signs. Their daughters couldn't believe it. So it's ready to happen. That is for sure. It's really almost too late, almost, but not quite. So there's a lot of promise.
One of the things that shocked me in the 2017 election, and again this time, I'm a bit of a policy wonk, so I like my facts and my figures, but most people don't. The majority of the people never look at our policies and platforms. They're looking for authenticity. They're looking for honesty. They're looking for somebody that they can trust. And I in this election, I wasn't going to run in this election. I was actually going to sit this one out because I was I hadn't worked in my job because I was campaigning in another election for the previous 8 months. And the number of people that reached out to me and said, Kim, if you don't run, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. I might just not vote. And it was continual throughout the entire campaign, the 3-week campaign, the number of people that said, thank you so much. You gave me something to vote for instead of for something to vote against. So many former NDP people that just said, I can't do it anymore. You've given me hope. And then when they cast their vote and they said, it was the first time that I cast a vote that I felt good about it. And oh my gosh, that is, that made it all worth the crazy 3 weeks that we had. And yeah, it was really heartwarming. And like I said earlier, the generosity of people giving their money during a pandemic with all of this uncertainty, it was incredibly heartwarming. It was, yeah, really great.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you to all of you for speaking so beautifully on this question and on each of the questions that you've responded to. It is clear it's 4:01, and I just want to take another moment with everyone. And it's clear that we have so many critical issues before us all, and having women's and men's voices in collaboration toward a better world is essential. So thank you again to our guests for doing such a brilliant job of stepping forward, and hopefully you will continue to do that with us at your backs. And I want to just mention to everybody on the call that you don't have to run away right away if you would feel like spending another few minutes just openly chatting as the group. And if any of you feel inspired to participate in any one of these ridings with the BC Greens or the federal Greens, we will you can go to each of the websites. And I think Megan was going to put websites in our chat box for you if you would like to do that. So Kim and Gillian and Alexandra, thank you so much for your contribution this afternoon, but moreover for your broader contribution in the field of politics as women. Thank you. So I'm going to open up. Megan, can you unmute us? And people who have to leave, please feel free to do that. And if you don't and you want to hang out for just a little bit and chat, we can do that too.
So everyone should be able to unmute themselves. Okay, that may not have been a good idea. So I'm just going to stop the recording here. Give me a second.